Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Craig Martin, the Executive Chairman of Dynam Capital and Vietnam Holdings, and our first keynote speaker. Craig has over 25 years of business building, investment experience, and fund management in emerging markets, and will walk us through the ESG investment criteria in Vietnam for institutional investors. So welcome, Craig.
Good morning. I'll try and juggle this without the podium. Here we go. Did you know that in the year 1800, only 2% of people lived in cities? By 1900, the share was still about 5%. By 1950, it had reached 30%, and it was only in 2007 when more than half the world's population lived in cities. In Vietnam, 37% of the population is now urbanized. So this is where Europe was at the end of the Second World War. China was at this level in 2000 and has since doubled. In doing so, China has added twice the number of homes in the United Kingdom and Spain. This is the largest pouring of concrete in the history of our planet. So although there might be some weakness in Vietnam's real estate market today, for many reasons, which I won't go into, but Vietnam will build more houses, probably tens of millions over the next 30 years. And cities will grow rapidly. This will increase efficiency, employment prospects, access to health, and economic growth. But, and there's always a but, the annual production of cement, which is one of the key ingredients, of course, in concrete, is already 5 billion tons per annum. That accounts for 8% of the man-made emissions of carbon dioxide. Vietnam is also at another key inflection point, and that's per capita GDP, which is past $3,000 recently. When China got to that level, it doubled again in 5 years. So this growth in the consumer power and demand will mean more convenience stores, more supermarkets. So that's great, cleaner food, access to many more choices for consumers, lots of new employment opportunities and logistics and businesses. But of course, lots of hard-to-recycle plastic bags and lots of hard-to-recycle plastic containers. So Vietnam is a country that offers many opportunities for ESG-focused investing, but there are challenges. And I hope that over the next 2 days, we will all get some practical takeaways and insights to help us overcome these challenges using environmental social governance tools and techniques. So I'm Craig Martin. I'm chairman of Dynam Capital, the manager for Vietnam Holding. And we're very proud to be sponsoring this inaugural ESG investing conference. I've been investing across Asia for 30 years and involved in incorporating ESG criteria in a very formal sense for over a decade. Firstly in private equity with a focus on infrastructure investments, and then over the past 5 years with Tin and my other colleagues from Dynam Capital, where we focus on public equities. As a long-term adherent to responsible investing, we use ESG as a tool to help us manage risk and enhance investment returns. There are more than 1,600 public companies in Vietnam, and we need to filter those to get to a portfolio of somewhere between 20 to 30. And having ESG as a screen is one way to sort the great companies from the good and the good companies from the bad. Discussing ESG issues with our portfolio companies can also reveal a lot about how they think about their investment strategy, their priorities and values. And this can be a very useful way to measure the health of a company and give some early warning signs, perhaps when they're veering off course. It can be as simple as them refusing to answer our telephone calls or not wanting to meet, or perhaps more seriously, changing the structure of their board without good reason. These meetings can also confirm our conviction that we have in that company. Maybe we see improvements in their reporting on various issues, including climate. Or maybe we see that they're promoting greater diversity in their boards or their management teams. If a company says that they are focused on ESG and sustainability, does the board report on it? Does the board commit resources and human capital to these sustainable issues? Do they have KPIs linked into ESG goals? So we look at a company from a wide range of angles and perspectives. Yes, we look at its financial performance. We look at its growth prospects. But we look at the non-financial as well, the environmental, social governance, because these are both risks and opportunities that are material to that company in both the short term as well as the long term. Is the company a good steward? A good steward of its resources? How does it treat its staff? How does it treat its suppliers and shareholders? This is the S in ESG. How are decisions at the board made? Are there independent directors? Can the chairperson challenge the CEO? Well, that's very hard to do if they're the same person. It's harder if it's a husband and wife. Are there enough or are there any women on the board? That's part of the G in ESG. And we recognize that ESG is a journey for many companies in Vietnam. Some are at a more advanced stage than others. And we're very patient investors. And we've seen, and indeed we've played a part in the positive developments within our portfolio companies on several ESG dimensions. And through Dynam Capital's active engagement process, which was pioneered by my colleague and the Chief Investment Officer, Vu Quang Tin, we share best practices with our portfolio companies. We discuss ways that the companies can consider improving their measurement of activities and enhance how they communicate their outcomes to their own investors. And we call this do more, measure more, and report more. Well, ESG investing has grown rapidly in recent years, as you're all aware. More and more investors say that they're seeking alignment with longer-term sustainability and now climate-focused objectives. Global ESG funds manage $7.7 trillion in assets. That's doubled in just 7 years, according to PwC. Put another way, capital that's focused on ESG will make up more than 21.5% of institutional capital by 2026. And according to Gartner, 85% of investors already consider ESG factors in their investment propositions. Well, how did we get here? Almost exactly 20 years ago, the mindset of institutional capital started to change. In June 2003, the Equator Principles were introduced. And these principles codified existing environmental and social policy frameworks in use by the IFC, part of the World Bank. Initially, these principles were applied to large infrastructure projects financed by the global banks and institutional investors, and really trying to limit major environmental and ecological disasters. The broader investment industry really only got behind this when the launch of the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investing, or PRI, in April 2006. 2006 was the same year that our first fund, Vietnam Holding, was launched, and the fund signed up to these principles in 2009, the very first investment fund in Vietnam to do so. The PRI today has over 5,300 signatories, representing over $120 trillion of assets under management. 120 trillion, wait a minute, that is almost the entire amount of global assets under management. And perhaps that's one reason there's a bit of a backlash. There's concern over greenwashing by companies and greenwashing by investment funds. And that's unfortunate, because we think that these reporting frameworks, such as the PRI, despite the kind of saturated membership, still have an important role to play. They encourage the do more, the measure more, and the report more approach. But part of the challenge for ESG investing includes the limited transparency and comparability of different ESG metrics and methodologies, inconsistent data, lack of clarity. How does ESG integration affect asset allocation and performance? Well, at tomorrow morning's keynote, you have Bertram Lai, who will be speaking more on this. Bertram is an expert on evaluating companies, so don't miss that. As we've heard already, climate change is a key focus area. It's also a key focus area for UNPRI. No surprise, it's the most urgent existential risk facing society today. And whenever you put on your ESG lens, clean energy jumps into focus. The Prime Minister committed Vietnam to transition to net zero by 2050 at COP26 in Glasgow. And later in this conference, there will also be a panel on COP and on energy finance, so don't miss that one either. But just to say, Vietnam has tremendous potential for wind and solar power. In theory, about 1,000 gigawatts. And the government's latest revisions to the Power Development Plan, PDP-8, of just a couple of weeks ago, provide the framework for a hopefully bright future, not only for powering domestic homes and businesses with lovely renewable energy, but also for exporting clean electricity to the rest of ASEAN. This will require a massive amount of investment, in the order of $200 billion US. That's 10 times the annual foreign direct investment into Vietnam. And much of this capital will come from the private sector and will have a very high focus on ESG adherence, which is great news for everyone in the conference over the next 2 days. So do take notes, might help with your job hunt. So there are great opportunities, but there are also challenges. And the challenges require innovative ESG solutions to create that positive change for the people and for the planet. ESG investing is not only a moral duty, but it's also a smart choice for institutional investors that want to invest here in Vietnam. So over the next 2 days, think about the world you want for your children or for your grandchildren. One of our colleagues, our ESG manager, just gave birth earlier this month to one of the 100th millionth citizens of Vietnam, a very cute baby boy. What will his life look like in 25 years' time? On his 26th birthday in May 2050, will we be at net zero? Will the street outside this hotel be flooded any more than perhaps in a high wet season? Will artificial intelligence limit his job prospects? Will he still be able to come and work for Dynam Capital? We hope so. Or will he give up? Will he be looking to escape to Mars with Elon Musk? Well, we don't know. But one thing for sure, he'll be thankful for his mum, who helped promote this ESG conference in Vietnam in the summer of 2023, and is making a change to how we look at investing our time and our resources. Finally, what we do has meaning and has purpose. As Michael Jackson sang, I won't sing, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm looking at him to change his ways. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make the change. Thank you for your attention and participation, and I wish you all a very productive and enjoyable conference. Thank you.